Welcome to Aspire to Lead, where we empower educators and school leaders to grow, inspire, and thrive. I'm your host, Joshua Stamper, author, speaker, and leadership coach, bringing you conversations that spark transformation, challenge the status quo in education, and equip you to make a lasting impact on your campus or in your district. For more information and resources, visit joshstamper.com as we're looking to ascend to new leadership heights together. All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. I am so excited, as usual, to have phenomenal guests like the one that I have this week. Carrie Bonnett, thank you so much for being on Aspire to Lead. It's been so much fun to get to know you, learn a bit about your work. A fellow friend of ours, Mitch Weathers, has been on this podcast before to talk about executive functioning. This is your world, your work. You're an actual executive functioning coach, and I cannot wait to dive in further with you and learn more about all the phenomenal things that you're doing. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Josh, for having me. It is my world. It is all I think about. Ask my family, my children, my teenagers.
I get it. I mean, when we're passionate about these things, these topics, and you have such a giving heart too, I think you just want to help as many folks as possible. And so I love what you're doing. So let's dive into that. So for those who are brand new to you and your work, would you just share a little bit about your educational background and your leadership journey?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked about the education piece because I come to this work from the education world.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this executive function coaching for 5.5 years now, but my original entry into this world was as a teacher. So I was a classroom teacher for 14 years. I taught middle and high school, humanities for the most part, social studies, language arts, but I even taught a little bit of French back in the day. I even taught a little bit of theology, like in various schools that I've been in. So lots of humanities courses, spent a lot of time with teenagers. And let's see. And in addition to being a coach now, I'm also an adjunct instructor for University of Portland. I live in Oregon. I'm based in Bend, Oregon. And so I've been teaching teachers in the School of Ed, getting their masters for more than a decade now, which I love because I haven't been in the classroom since I've been doing this coaching work, but I have sort of kept my finger on the pulse of education and working with early career teachers. I love teachers. I love schools. Anytime I get a chance to be in a school and hanging out with teachers, I love, 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 love it.
That's awesome. I feel the exact same way. So let's talk about the work that you're doing and specifically Task Initiative, because I think we are in the springtime and spring has sprung for a lot of teachers. A lot of administrators are working with student behavior. You describe Task Initiation as helping students take that very first step, especially when it feels maybe boring or overwhelming, maybe too big. So I'm just hoping that we can start the conversation where you're explaining task initiation in a simple brain-based language for folks, specifically, maybe when they're seeing it as procrastination.
Yes, the word procrastination always comes up. I thought it might be coming out of your mouth, but I wasn't totally sure. In fact, that's how people typically describe it to me. So I failed to mention in answer to your first question that I primarily work with students and families. So middle school all the way up. I work with college students. I have more adult clients reaching out for help and support than I thought I would when I started this whole thing. But my background is in education. I work with a lot of students, and the word procrastination always comes up just because I think in fact, any of the struggles that come up when people reach out to me, procrastination, time management, their backpack is a mess, their locker, their desk, their whatever is a mess, those organizational pieces, all that stuff. It's a misunderstanding, I guess, about what's going on. So the procrastination piece, I often get the student or the parent, sometimes the parent, saying like, I am a terrible procrastinator, or he, she, they, terrible procrastinator. So sure, I hear the word procrastination, but it is about this thing, task initiation. So one of the many executive function skills, I use this list of 11 that comes from Peg Dawson and Richard Guer's books, but 11 skills. One of them is called task initiation, which is just getting started, like you said, but on the boring stuff, or when it feels too big, or when I'm distracted, or when I'm too tired. Often, not always, but often getting started on something we enjoy is relatively easy. But anyway, so we talk in my work with students and families about, like, let's back up a little bit. Getting started is a skill, and skills can be taught and must be taught, in fact. So instead of saying I'm I'm a terrible procrastinator, I like try to shift the narrative. In fact, there's video in some of this too. So I have a brain on my desk. So
Oh, that's awesome.
the audio people, I'm sorry, you can't see my brain. It's not real, it's a brain thing, right? So like shifting the narrative from I'm bad at getting started to like my brain struggles to get started. And then you identified like some of the things. Maybe the thing feels so big, I don't know where to start. Maybe it's an energy thing. Like I had a bad night's sleep, or there's so many things. There's so much more to say about it than just that child is being willful. We'll probably get into that too, but like, I just don't buy it. I don't buy that kids are willfully trying to not start the thing, whatever the thing is. Right.
I'm even thinking about myself.
Totally.
That was not a case then and now.
No.
I mean, yeah. Do you want to go into that a little bit deeper?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I also, the word motivation comes up a lot too.
Yep.
I also think it's important to note that we kind of have it all wrong about motivation. This is what I tell my clients too, is like, we tend to think that we need to get motivated in order to start the thing, the chore, the homework assignment, the big essay, the big project, that whatever it is that we don't want to do, that we have to like muster up the motivation first. But really the brain people tell us it's the other way around, is that just starting is what leads to a little bit of momentum maybe. And then that's when the motivation comes. So just that little shift also with students, because they all say, yep, Carrie, I do feel like I need to get motivated in order to start my homework or whatever the chore or the thing. But if we wait for motivation, it might never come, right? Like if it's truly a non-preferred task, which mostly people who come to me, there's a lot of things that they don't want to do. Me too. If I wait for the motivation to come, like it may not come. And yet we still have to do the thing. So this conversation about motivation, blame, like, oh, I should be able to figure this out. All of this stuff comes up in my work with clients. And it's a little bit of a shift, like a mindset shift.
Okay, let's move further with that, because I'm thinking, our secondary educators, a lot of them are sitting with a 45 to 15-minute class. And maybe we have some students that are just sitting there and doing nothing during that time. And this maybe goes with that motivation piece. But instead of looking at them as maybe willful or defiant.
I thought you were going to say lazy.
Or lazy, right? We're filling in that blank. So can you talk about that mindset shift again, as far as our teachers, so that way it's not so much of a struggle for the students, and maybe also not a character flaw?
Yes. I mean, yes, I'm so glad you bring that up. In fact, I did a teacher training, maybe a couple of years ago at a school in Portland, and it was a secondary school. Veteran teacher raised his hand, after our conversation about executive function in general, but also some of these specific skills like task initiation. And he raised his hand and he said, Carrie, let me just make sure I understand this. If I give the class period or the whole week to work on the project, and there's this one student who just kind of sits there and, like you said, exactly, like kind of dinks around and doesn't do the thing. Are you telling me that's an executive function thing? And I was like, yay, celebrate. Yes, and yes, right? With the assumption, and I was guilty of it too. I mean, I'd love to be able to tell you that when I was in the classroom, I was like the one who had a heart for the kids who were struggling and understood this stuff back then. I didn't. I'm 51 years old. My teacher training started in 1996. I didn't learn about this stuff until more recently. So I am sure that I was judging kids, and in my head anyway, calling it a character flaw. That like, why can't they just get started? I know I was. And then this teacher, like, I celebrate him asking this because yes. I hope that that's something that now he and maybe the others in the room can't unsee once they've seen it, right? So the question is like, okay, yes, I think that is a executive function thing. So maybe it's hey, I see you're having trouble getting started. How can I help? Or what if, fill in the blank, here's some strategies to try, rather than like, get to work. Right? Like that term or that phrase doesn't help. It doesn't help. Just get to work, or just start. I mean, the thing I was saying before, about like how motivation needs to follow starting. But I also then hear kids who say like, but I don't know how to start. And that's a tricky thing, right? Like if I say just start or get back to work or get to work, that doesn't give kids much of a much information for like, how do I do that exactly? If maybe I'm distracted because there's too much noise in the room, or maybe I had, again, back to this energy thing, like I had a terrible night's sleep, or some scary thing is happening in my life, a family member, a friend, or a person who I love is sick, or there's so many reasons why getting started is tricky. So digging into that is kind of interesting too, but noticing you're a good kid. I see you're having trouble getting started. How about we try X, Y, or Z? I think that's a really important shift. And I don't think I was doing it when I was in the classroom, to be honest.
No, I wasn't either. And you're right. I mean, just get to work is a very general term.
Yeah.
It looks
what does that
very
mean?
different, very different to different people.
Right.
So being more specific and
Right.
honing in on that one student to have better communication about what that looks like, or maybe even finding out what the problem is in the first hand.
For sure.
Because,
That's where the relationship piece comes in, right?
Right. And behavior is a language. So let's decipher that and figure out what's going on there.
Totally. Yeah.
I want to talk about the communication component even further. And you had talked about time management, organization, all these executive functioning skills. But sometimes, and I'm thinking of myself as a middle school teacher, I had to remind students constantly. And it was something almost like I felt like I was nagging them.
Yeah.
Like I had to say it 7, 8 different times before they got to do whatever the task was that I was asking them. So instead of just these constant reminders or maybe feeling like a power struggle, is there anything else that you would recommend in regards to classroom routines or some other supports?
Yeah. I love it. Use the word nagging because that comes up in my work a lot too. Mostly the kids are talking about their parents who are nagging them, or parents feeling like they just what you said. I feel like I am constantly nagging. I hear this a lot too. Like, I wish they would just listen the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking a couple of things that come up in my mind when I think about this, like listen the first time or get back to work or whatever these things are. And one is this working memory is one of the executive function skills, sort of a special kind of short-term memory where we like hold in sort of, I call it what we need to keep front of mind. Like, how good is your brain at hanging on to information that you need to keep front of mind? We as parents and teachers tend to overload working memory of our students. As a teacher, I'm sure I did it. As a parent, I know I do it. As a teacher, I'm sure you did this too, but like everybody's packing up, lessons over, getting ready to go for the day. Wait, one more thing, like I forgot to tell you the thing, whatever it is, like the permission slip or something, right? Like, don't you pitch, I wrote the wrong page. It's 27 or whatever it is. And they're already out the door and will not remember that. Like, and then I think about as a parent, I do this all the time too. I try not to, but, asking the example I like to give is hey, my son is Calvin. He's 15. Calvin, can you go, bring your laundry to the machine? Great. So he starts to walk away. Oh, and while you're back there, could you also blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, okay, mom, I got it. 2 things. Great. Yeah. And then I'm like, wait, what? One more thing. Could you? And then he's like, it's gone. So thing number 1 I'm thinking about is to just be aware of the working memory piece. Many students, especially those who struggle with this executive function stuff, can truly only keep 1 to 2 items, instructions, like front of mind. So teachers, I was there. Parents, I am there. We want them to remember all the things, but it's not very realistic. So keeping that in mind is like 1 instruction at a time, maybe 2 instructions at a time can be a game changer. And then you were talking about the nagging thing too, because then it comes back to like, well, if I only 1 instruction at a time, then I'm going to be constantly giving instructions, 1 and then the next and then the next. And so then my next suggestion or thought is we have to keep things visible for kids. So I like to call it making the invisible visible, but out of sight, out of mind is a good one. Visual reminders, visual structures, writing the agenda on the board, whatever the things are, like making sure that kids can see what our expectations are. There's a lot in our world that is invisible, and especially in the life of a student, especially now that they have iPads or laptops or, like their homework disappears when they close the iPad. So figuring out ways to like keep things in sight for kids. And maybe you still have to remind, but like point to instead of, hey, don't forget this, try this. But maybe you just point to here's where we are on the agenda or something on their desk, figuring out a way to like help kids by making all that invisible stuff visible.
All right. What about, now I'm even thinking about my own kids at home. You
Yeah.
kept talking about the parent piece, and I have elementary all the way to college. That's the scope of my household,
Big
which is
range.
insanity. Yes. So for those who are maybe neurodivergent,
Mm.
who task initiation, executive functioning is especially challenging, what are some adaptations that our teachers can do to truly help affirm them and also work with their different brain?
For sure. I like that use the brain thing, because that's thing number one is I call it using the brain language.
Yeah.
So like, instead of I'm bad at organization, my brain struggles with organization, or rather than I'm no good at getting started, or I never know how to get started. Like, my brain struggles, or I have a brain that struggles with task initiation, for example. Because remember how I thought you were going to use the word lazy earlier? You would never, but but I hear it a lot, right? And kids
Sure.
tell me, they report that they get called lazy, right?
Yeah.
Or at least
I was called lazy growing up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so let's like try to shift the language, I think, is thing number one. And we also talked about creating relationships with students, really important, of course. And I think the shifting of the language goes a really long way. And I will say also, in your own head, like certainly in front of the child, I want you to shift the language, but also in your own head, talking to your partner, talking to other teachers about kids, the shift of that language using brain language is powerful, and language matters. So that's sort of the first thing I want to say. And then there's all kinds of like these little ways that we can kind of almost trick the brain into getting started. And honestly, the most simple one is to start real small. So like, you look at this big project and your brain goes, some kids go, what? This is huge. I don't know what to do with it. In my world, we call this chunking, making it to little baby steps. But what I like about chunking is that it can be kind of two things. It could be scaffolding into little tiny steps, right? Like, first you do this, great. And then you this, and then turn in this. If you're older kids, like draft one, or have your sources by this date, or whatever it is, like those kind of chunks. But it also can be chunking by time. So in a classroom, a short amount of time, listen, you don't have to finish this whole thing. I just want you to work on it for 4 minutes. Or whatever, how many minutes do you think you might, literally how many minutes do you think you might be able to stay focused, or, think about this topic? In my world, we often hear about chunking by task, like breaking a big project into little chunks. But I also like this idea of chunking by time. And what that also does is like, that's where the motivation comes from. If we can just get started, even if it's 4 minutes or 7 minutes, or I actually ask my clients, literally, let's find the sweet spot. Like, what is the sweet spot for you, for like how long you can kind of focus on something boring that you don't really want to do? And it varies across the board. I'll tell you that for sure. Like, some kids are like 2 minutes. I can only focus on it for 2 minutes. And then some say, 30, 35, even if it's pretty boring. So anywhere in the middle, I don't care what the number is, 17, 11, 6, I don't care. But giving students like a little bit of like, just for this long, we're just going to work on it for this little bit. And that, I think, works in all grades, not just, timers are not just for elementary kids or toddlers. I often say that timers are not just for toddlers. I love a timer for a teen and an adult. I just got off a call today earlier with an adult client of mine, and she doesn't use any timers in her world at all, and was like, I think this might help. Mm-hmm. So this idea of chunking, but also by task, or by time, like little tiny bits of time.
Yeah, for sure. We use timers in our house, and it doesn't matter the age, even for adults.
Totally.
I have plenty of alarms and timers and dings going off, and people probably hear it on the podcast.
Absolutely. Well, right before we started recording, my reminder to get on with Josh was going off on my phone too.
That's right.
I mean, there's too much that we have to hold in our heads, and that's something that I talk with clients about too. Is like offloading. Your brain is not meant for like holding all that stuff. Like, get it out of there and offload it in a way that is supportive and helpful. And timers can be really great for that. Also, earn a little bit of dopamine, like ding, I did it, 6 minutes. Woohoo!
Exactly. All right. I want to talk about something that's exciting, because you have a toolkit, and I'm going to put the link up for those who are viewing on YouTube. And hopefully you are viewing on YouTube, because then you could see Carrie's brain that she pulled out earlier.
Shall I bring it out again? It's
sure. Let's bring it out again.
There it is.
There you go.
We can just hold on to it.
Never had anyone
else has a brain on their desk. I don't know.
I have lots of things on my desk, but
Oh yeah. Look, I've got a little tiny duck that lives by my brain.
There you go.
My daughter gave me that. Anyway, back to the brain.
Back to the brain. You've got an awesome toolkit that's simple brain-friendly strategies. And so I'd love for you to share about that, how people can grab it, what it's going to do to help them as soon as today or tomorrow.
Yeah. I created this maybe a year ago. It's a free resource. I call it the Task Initiation Toolkit. It is just 16 simple ideas for how to help a student get started when their brain is having trouble getting started. So you'll see on there a couple of familiar things probably, which is, chunking it by time or by task is one idea. Another timer related one on that list, I call it the 2-minute rule. Have you heard this before? Which is like, if you think it's going to take you 2 minutes or less, just do it now, right? So like the 2-minute rule, if it's a really quick win or a tiny, tiny thing, just try to take care of that right now while you're thinking about it. But anyway, it's designed for parent and teachers who are supporting a kid who needs help in this area. But here's the thing, adults find it useful too. And the language is to help your student. But listen, I use maybe all 16 of these in my life, in my work, in my home life, my mom life. So I think parents and teachers will also get some ideas for how do I get started when it's boring or when I don't wanna. And that you can just find at my website, which is carriebonnett.com. And then that one is carriebonnett.com/toolkit.
Awesome. I'm glad you said that for the audio audience out there on the podcast platforms. But, I was actually thinking, coaching leaders, we talk about to-do lists, and you talked about that 2-minute thing. That's very similar to what I was coaching on, and as far as like how to arrange your to-do list,
yes.
as far as getting those things. And in case of motivation, crossing that off, talk about the dopamine and feeling good about yourself. And sometimes even folks doing a task, writing that task on the to-do list to then go cross that out.
I hear that
Yep.
too. I love a to-do list. I know. I love a to-do list. I have a lot of opinions about to-do lists, but I like what you're saying, which is having some sort of, well, first of all, proof, check or cross off or whatever that you met your goal. That's good for your little bit of dopamine, but also organizing it in some way so you can kind of see what the quick wins are. I like putting time. I use what I call time circles, where you just draw a little bubble next to it. An hour is filled in circle, a half an hour is a semicircle, just so you have more information about the things on your list than just like 20 things on your list.
Which can be frustrating for administrators, especially as we all know those days typically get usurped and you get very little done off of that to-do list.
No, there's always too many things, always things, always things. Yeah,
always
for
things.
Sure. I've never been an administrator, but I believe it.
Oh, I joke on my presentations or when I do a keynote that it feels like you're riding a bike, but you're on fire, the bike's on fire, everything's on fire.
Okay. That sounds real fun.
Good visual.
I can picture it. Yes, I can. Okay.
So, Carrie, you talked about clients, working with schools, helping teachers, parents. I would love for you just to share out just a little bit more about the work that you're doing now as an executive functioning coach. And then, of course, your services, so that anyone that's listening, if that's something that they need assistance with, they can get in contact with you.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I work remotely. So I work with anyone all over the world. I primarily work with students and families. So one-on-one with grades 6 and up. If a parent comes to me and their kids are younger and they're like, please, we need some help in this area, I usually will say, great, but I will work with you instead of your kids, because the younger kids, I'd rather work with parents. So I do parent coaching in those situations as well. So middle school all the way up, typically students and families will sign on with me for up to 10 sessions as kind of a starting point. We usually start with, 8 or 10 sessions, and we meet on Zoom. And basically, I like to call part of my job, like, part the brain stuff, helping kids understand their brains better and just brains in general. And then part strategizing. Like, okay, now that I know this about my brain, what are some things that I can do that would make life easier? To be honest, Josh, that's how I get kid buy-in. I'm like, look, I want to make school and life easier for you. And they usually are like, great, I'll take it. So I work, like I said, students and families. And then I also love working with teachers and schools, professional development as well. So like I was mentioning, this high school that I worked with not too long ago, I love teacher trainings, workshops, in-service days, professional development, just because I think the more teachers that know about this thing, executive function, that it's real and it's not just fluffy, the better for our kids. Those are the services I provide. And then I've got a handful of like digital products. I have an introductory course on executive function that's designed for parents and teachers, and a handful of PDFs and things on my website as well. But I kind of call myself an executive function evangelist. I just want everybody to know about this thing, executive function, and some ways to support brains.
That's awesome. That's a funny way of describing it.
I know, it's weird. I don't know when I started saying
We're feeling the spirit, Carrie.
Yeah, it's very holy. I don't know.
All right, let's talk about some action steps, right? So as we're winding down, for those leaders that are tuning in, and we've got some that are aspiring leaders that might be teachers all the way to superintendents that are leading a massive amount of folks. So, if there's something they can do today, tomorrow, next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you recommend?
I think the language piece, like I was saying, like shifting to the brain language. So blaming this stuff on brains. I mean, I know a brain is part of the human, but rather than blame it on the kid, let's just call it a brain thing. And then the other thing, to be honest, that I was thinking about is like helping kids also, but getting to the bottom of what's really going on. So it's almost never willful, I don't think. What kind of stuck is it, right? Like I'm identifying the stuckness. Like, is it I'm tired? Is it I don't know what the topic, I can't pick a topic. I can't quite decide on a topic. Is it this thing feels too big? Is it I'm overwhelmed and I have so many other classes going and all these things? Like try to get to the bottom of the stuckness. And it's okay to like use weird words like stuckness. That's not a word, right? Like that's part of building relationships with kids too, is just understanding like, I see you're having trouble. What kind of stuck is this? Is this, it's too noisy in the classroom, whatever it is. So trying to get to the bottom of what it is that's going on, because then that informs their decision about how to help support a kid.
Yeah, it's similar to a doctor. You have a symptom and you're trying to figure out and diagnose what's truly going on.
Yeah, exactly right. Sometimes kids aren't able to tell you, and that's okay too. But asking shows that you care.
For sure. Trauma or something else going on that's impacting. Shoot, some of our adults don't even have these skills, but they have these emotions. They don't even know how to dissect it to understand what truly is underneath the behavior that's going on.
Right.
So you got to help them and assist them. And sometimes it takes time, which is frustrating.
For sure.
We got to go through the curriculum, and obviously we have scope and sequence that we've got to move forward in addition to it's spring and state testing is occurring. So it's a struggle for sure, but I love what you're talking about.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course. Carrie, let's talk about how people can connect with you. We've talked about your website. We've talked about the toolkit. Is there anywhere else that you would want to send them to learn more about you, maybe ask questions or about the various projects you got going on?
Yeah. You can always email me. It's just Carrie@carriebonnett.com. That's an easy one. I love hearing from people and talking to people about what's going on in their world. And then I'm on Instagram and various other places, but Instagram, I guess, is a good place to start anyway. And that is at Coach Carrie Bonnett.
Well, as usual, if you're looking for any of this information, it'll be in the show notes for those who are on a podcast player. If you're looking just to, connect with Carrie in various ways, you can head over to joshstamper.com. I'll have all of these links there. And of course, if you want to see the brain, the infamous brain that Carrie has been showing throughout our conversation.
Yes. Okay.
I'm trying to boost this up. You can head over to youtube.com/Joshua Stamper. That's the channel.
Come see my brain.
Check it out. A ton of resources there for you also. With that, Carrie, it's been so much fun to get to know you, learn about all the wonderful things that you're doing, and really appreciate you jumping on here on Aspire to Lead and sharing out so many wonderful and wise things for our educators.
Thanks for having me. It's great talking to you.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.